because the WNBA has launched this 30th anniversary celebration. And who do they go get to be a spokesperson for this said celebration? One of the most toxic individuals in the history of all sports, in Sheryl.
Watch that reaction carefully. That's not just disappointment. That's genuine disbelief. Because after Caitlin Clark single-handedly dragged this league into profitability for the first time in its 30-year history, after she brought the ratings, the sold-out arenas, and the $2.2 billion media deal, the WNBA just made a decision so tone-deaf it's almost impressive. They picked Sheryl Swoopes to be the face of their 30th anniversary celebration. Yes, that's Sheryl Swoopes. The same person who spent an entire season publicly undermining the league's biggest star.
Legendary player Sheryl Swoopes stars in Raising Goats teaser that debuts today. Let's just go over here. We're going to watch this. Look, I may be a little rusty on WNBA history, but wasn't Cynthia Cooper just an absolute hoss on that Houston Comets squad?
The marketing campaign launched this week with Swoopes front and center, surrounded by young players, talking about building others up and raising the next generation of greatness. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. This is the same woman who was removed from her podcast in March after months of spreading misinformation about Caitlin Clark's college career. The same analyst who questioned Clark's assists, her scoring records, even her age at one point, and now she's lecturing about mentorship and supporting young talent. Let's talk about what actually happened here. The WNBA created this anniversary spot featuring Swoopes with children, future stars learning the game. She delivers lines about staying confident, building others up, and teaching the next generation. But here's the kicker. The commercial literally shows players getting knocked down, with Swoopes saying even if it means knocking them down. They're still leaning into the physical play narrative that defined the ugliest moments of last season.
Somewhere. Didn't I see Centron hitting the ground somewhere? Where was that? Right here. So are we're still leaning into the let's beat the crap out of players on the court syndrome that this league has suffered from? That's what we're doing. By the way, guys, this is the first time I watched this because I wanted you guys to get my real visceral reaction. What in the world is this crap?
Look at that clip they included. That's a Caitlin Clark getting hammered to the floor, used as B-roll in an anniversary celebration. The league is actively marketing the violence that dominated headlines all season. The cheap shots, the flagrant fouls, the constant physical targeting that overshadowed actual basketball. And they're presenting it as tradition, as part of the culture, as something to celebrate. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Fans flooded social media, asking why Cynthia Cooper wasn't chosen instead. Cooper won 4 championships with the Houston Comets, earned Finals MVP in all 4 years, and actually has a legacy of elevating teammates without tearing others down. She's from the same era as Swoopes, but without the baggage of recent controversies. Diana Taurasi would have made sense. Breanna Stewart is currently one of the league's biggest stars. Even Sue Bird, who retired with universal respect, would have been a logical choice.
Generational hater as toxic as Swoopes to kick off the season. She sucks as a person. I'm going to keep it real. Why would you not get Caitlin Clark to host this? Are the WNBA scared of everybody else in the league? Still, all the petty and the jealousy still running around. The league is still on its knees for that.
But they chose Swoopes. And that choice reveals something critical about where this league's leadership stands. Because this wasn't an accident or an oversight. Someone in the WNBA offices sat in a meeting and actively decided that Sheryl Swoopes represented the best face for their anniversary campaign. They looked at everything that happened last season, the jealousy, the gatekeeping, the constant undermining of new fans, and decided to double down on it. Think about the message this sends. The WNBA just had its most successful season in history. Attendance records shattered across the league. The Indiana Fever went from playing in half-empty arenas to selling out every game. Television ratings multiplied by factors of 3, 4, sometimes 10 compared to previous years. All of that growth came from one player bringing in millions of new fans, and the league's response is to feature someone who spent months antagonizing those exact fans.
Did Sheryl Swoopes really just say, quote, build others up? Just certain ones, right, Swoopes? Oh, yeah, because she loves her some Angel Reese. Using Swoopes as a spokesperson who spent her time lying about a rookie. Talk about not understanding your audience. It's wild. It's wild. Oh, they're trying to rehab Sheryl Swoopes' image. Nah, they can save it for somebody else.
Remember the specific incidents. In August, Swoopes questioned whether Clark actually broke the NCAA scoring record, suggesting she played more games than Pete Maravich. That was easily fact-checked and proven false, but the damage was done. She consistently downplayed Clark's rookie season achievements, moving goalposts and changing criteria to diminish her accomplishments. When Clark set the WNBA rookie scoring record, Swoopes found reasons it didn't count. When she broke the single-season assist record, suddenly assists weren't the right metric to judge greatness. This pattern wasn't subtle. It was systematic, consistent, and targeted. And it wasn't just Swoopes. She represented a larger faction within WNBA circles that resented the new attention. The "you weren't here before" crowd that treated new fans with hostility instead of welcome. The gatekeepers who saw growth as a threat rather than an opportunity.
Eating ass Swoopes. Slam the door. Slam the door. Shut. Why is there 30 Caitlin Clarks in there? That's good. That's good. I mean, wow. Wow. Swoopes talking about building others up. Nobody sees how ironic this is. It is absurd. It's absurd.
The comments under the WNBA's announcement tell the story. I don't want Swoopes near these fine little goats. Why would you not get Caitlin Clark to host this? As soon as I saw hater Swoopes, slam the door shut. These aren't casual fans complaining. These are the people who actually showed up last season, who bought tickets, who watched games, who drove the revenue that finally made this league profitable. And here's what makes this particularly short-sighted. The WNBA is about to need those fans more than ever. The new CBA kicks in this season with dramatically increased salaries. Players at the top tier will make $1.4 million annually. That's a massive jump from previous years, and it's only sustainable if the growth from last season continues. If those new fans walk away because the league keeps disrespecting the player who brought them in, the economics fall apart fast.
There's at least been some positivity between her and Caitlin Clark, especially towards the end of that career. She wouldn't have been my first choice. I'd have still put, you know what? I said this before. I'll say it again. Caitlin Clark would be over all of my propaganda. All of it. Caitlin would be on all of it. That lady that was walking out in the commercial 2 years ago talking about this is the WNBA and she was in some office, it'd have been Caitlin Clark hosting that video.
Let's be specific about what's at stake here. The WNBA operated at a loss for 29 consecutive years before 2024. That's not speculation. That's documented history. The league survived because the NBA subsidized it, viewing it as a long-term investment in growing the game. Last season finally showed signs of breaking even, possibly turning a small profit, though the league hasn't released official numbers yet. That turnaround came entirely from the Caitlin Clark effect. The ratings spike, the attendance boom, the merchandise sales, all of it. The new media deal worth $2.2 billion over 11 years was negotiated based on those 2024 numbers. Networks saw the potential and paid accordingly. But here's the thing about media deals. They include performance clauses and expectations. If ratings crater back to pre-Clark levels, those contracts get renegotiated or terminated. The league doesn't have the luxury of alienating its growth engine.
Wow. Okay. I mean, oh boy. Guys, I've said this before and I will say it again. They're about to come after Caitlin again. She played 13 games last year, and I think she averaged some kind of an...
And yet that's exactly what this anniversary campaign does. It's not just tone-deaf, it's actively hostile to the fan base that saved the league. Featuring Swoopes sends a clear message: we value our old guard more than our new fans. We care more about internal politics than external growth. We'd rather appease the jealous veterans than embrace the future. This connects to a larger pattern we saw all last season. The physical targeting of Clark wasn't just about basketball. It was about sending a message. The cheap shots, the flagrant fouls that somehow didn't get called, the constant physical abuse that refs let slide. League officials could have shut that down immediately, with a memo emphasizing player safety and proper enforcement of existing rules. They chose not to. They let it continue because addressing it would mean acknowledging the problem, and acknowledging the problem would mean admitting that some veterans were treating the league's biggest star like an enemy instead of an asset. Now we're seeing the same dynamic play out in marketing decisions. The WNBA had a chance to make this anniversary campaign forward-looking, to celebrate where the league is heading rather than where it's been. They could have featured Caitlin Clark alongside legends, showing the passing of the torch. They could have highlighted the new fans, the growth, the momentum. Instead, they went with someone who represents everything that held the league back. Think about what Swoopes actually said in that commercial. Not all kids become goats, because goats aren't just born, they're raised. We teach them to stay hungry, get loud, build others up. Every single phrase rings hollow coming from her. Building others up? She spent a year tearing down the most accomplished rookie in league history, teaching them to stay humble. She couldn't handle someone else getting attention. The cognitive dissonance is staggering, and that line about even if it means knocking them down, paired with footage of hard fouls and physical play, that's not inspirational, that's threatening. It's telling young players that violence is part of the culture, that hurting your opponents is acceptable, that physical intimidation is just how things work in this league. What kind of message is that for a sport trying to grow? The WNBA keeps making the same mistake. They keep prioritizing the feelings of a small, vocal minority over the interests of their broader fan base. They saw what happened with the dark side comment from Dejounte Carrington, where she dismissed new fans as problematic. They watched that blow up into a massive controversy that damaged the league's reputation, and they learned nothing from it. Because here's the reality, those new fans aren't going anywhere if you treat them right. They're not casual observers looking for the next trend. They're basketball fans who finally found a product worth watching. Caitlin Clark gave them a reason to care about the WNBA, and now they're invested. But investment goes both ways. If the league keeps showing contempt for them, keeps featuring people who actively antagonize them, keeps celebrating the aspects of the culture they found toxic, they'll leave, and they won't come back. Look at the specific numbers. Indiana Fever home games averaged 17,000 fans last season, up from around 4,000 the year before. That's not a marginal increase, that's a complete transformation of the business model. Away games saw similar spikes when the Fever visited. Television ratings for nationally broadcast Fever games regularly exceeded 2 million viewers, sometimes hitting 3 million. Those are numbers the WNBA hasn't seen since its inaugural season in 19... All of that growth is fragile. It's based on one player and the ecosystem of fans she brought with her. The WNBA needs to convert those fans into long-term supporters of the entire league, not just Clark's team. That means making them feel welcome, valued, and respected. It means showing them that the league appreciates their support and wants them to stay. Featuring Sheryl Swoopes in your flagship anniversary campaign does the opposite. And here's what particularly frustrating. This was preventable. The WNBA had months to plan this campaign. They knew Swoopes was controversial. They knew she'd been removed from her podcast role. They knew fans hadn't forgotten her treatment of Clark. They had all the information they needed to make a better choice, and they did this anyway. That suggests either incompetence or deliberate provocation, and neither one is a good look. So where does this leave us? The WNBA season starts May 8th with higher expectations than ever before. Players are making more money, teams have better facilities, media coverage has expanded, all the infrastructure is in place for sustained growth, but the league keeps undermining itself with decisions like this. They keep picking at the wound instead of letting it heal. Caitlin Clark is going to have a target on her back again this season. That's inevitable. She played 13 games in the playoffs last year and dealt with incidents from J.C. Sheldon, Marina Mabrey, Angel Reese, and others. The physical targeting, the verbal jabs, the constant attempts to get under her skin, that's going to intensify now because the jealousy hasn't gone away. If anything, it's gotten worse as the gap in attention and endorsements has widened. The question is whether the league will protect its biggest asset or continue enabling the behavior that nearly derailed last season. Will they enforce player safety rules consistently? Will they call flagrant fouls when they happen? Will they create an environment where talent is celebrated rather than punished? Or will they keep producing commercials that glorify knocking people down and featuring spokespeople who spent a year undermining their own sport? Because make no mistake, this isn't just about one marketing campaign. This is about the fundamental question of what the WNBA wants to be. Does it want to be a growing, thriving league that welcomes new fans and celebrates its stars? Or does it want to be an insular, defensive organization that prioritizes internal politics over external success? You can't be both. You have to choose. Right now, the evidence suggests they're choosing wrong. They're choosing Sheryl Swoopes over Caitlin Clark. They're choosing the old guard over new fans. they're choosing comfort over growth. And if they don't course correct soon, they're going to waste the biggest opportunity in league history. So here's my question for you. If you were running the WNBA, who would you have picked for this anniversary campaign? And more importantly, what does this decision tell you about whether the league has actually learned anything from last season? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if this analysis resonated with you, and subscribe because we're going to be covering every twist and turn of this WNBA season as it unfolds. This story is far from over.